All right, let's talk Steelport Knife Company. I love this. We're in Portland. It's all made here locally. What got you into building knives, man?
Steelport is a reaction to why have we never had a proper American kitchen knife?
Right.
And we feel that knives got worse about 50 years ago when we just started stamping them and make them out of stainless steel instead of carbon steel. And Steelport, we're on a mission to just reintroduce American forged carbon steel kitchen knives.
Well, let's talk about building knives, because you guys start out, this is made in USA and as made as Portland as you can get. Let's talk about the metal, because that's, of course, where you're starting with a knife.
Yeah, so everything we use is made in the U.S. and sourced in the U.S. So all our raw materials, steel, pins, everything. We don't produce any raw steel in Oregon, so our steel comes from the Midwest. But we chose a 52100 ball bearing steel, which was not originally designed to be a knife grade steel. Mm-hmm. Knife makers a long time ago realized that it just hits everything that we're looking for in a knife. So as far as the sharpenability, durability, edge retention, everything that you're looking for in a kitchen knife, you can get with 52100 with a proper heat treat. Forging's not the easiest thing. The steel does not move very well, but it's worth it at the end.
Yeah, it's amazing. I've done some metal work with drop forging and stuff like that. It's totally cool, but it's so different than what you guys do compared to like an assembly line.
Yeah, most of our processes have to be done one at a time, and a lot of the stuff is still done freehand just because we haven't figured out an easier way to do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, carbon steel, it can get harder and finer grained than a stainless steel, and we chose to forge it because that is just the most durable way to make a blade. So one, you have the, once our knives are patinaed, you can actually see the way the steel grain flows through it. And we chose a lifting hook as our symbol because a lifting hook has to be forged. It can't be stamped, it can't be cast, it will fail on you every time. So our S is a lifting hook because that is the most durable way to construct a knife. And it's the only way if you want a integral bolster, if you want your knife to be just one solid piece. Yeah. We have no pins, no soldering lines, welds on it. It's just one solid piece.
That's great. That's great. And then you guys, once you get into that, you start polishing things, correct? Once you get into that.
We go through a 24-hour polish. It goes through a tumble. Wow. And comes out with a mirror finish on it, and then it's much easier to use that way. So we find that a lot of people, this is their first carbon steel knife, and everybody kind of scared them about carbon steel, and they're like, okay, what's the big deal? Yeah. And we have people that are coming in from using the traditional Japanese knives or the old, French sabatiers, and they find that these are much less reactive because not only do we put the full polish on it, but we also pre-patina them.
Yeah. And then you guys are using what, coffee for that, you said?
Yeah, coffee is, we are a Portland cliche because we're using coffee. But
can't use donuts.
But we tried everything. In my defense, we tried everything on the way to coffee. So we looked at vinegars, wines, teas, anything that is acidic and natural, because normally I would just use ferric chloride to etch a blade, but we're trying not to use any harmful products.
Sure.
So yeah, coffee ended up with the best result for us, and with our level of finish, it brings up again that grain flow. People, some blades almost look like they're Damascus steel, but they're not. Yeah. And it brings out our heat treat. And we would have to do that at some point. We would have to patina our blade as a quality check.
Sure.
Right. So if there's any flaws in the steel, any cold spots, any hot spots where they're not supposed to be, then we would have to scrap that blade. So we have to check it anyway, and we decide to do it at the end of the process as proof to the customer that we got everything right.
Exactly. And then you guys get into the wood. I mean, these handles are absolutely gorgeous. I love working with wood, and what you guys are doing there is spectacular.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the fun parts is the wood. We pick the grain very carefully. We use Oregon big leaf maple. Yeah. We just use the burl part, and we get it fully kiln dried, which is what most people consider a stabilized wood, but we do a resin stabilization on it. So wood looks great and feels great on a handle. There's nothing better than that, but it's actually not the best choice of handle material if it's just plain dried and oiled. So if you see old wooden handles, they're always, you know, cracked or swollen off,
Checked
and
or
they don't
something,
look.
yeah.
So what we do is we actually put them in a vacuum chamber, suck out all the air, and replace it with a hardenable resin. And then once it's fully saturated, we bake it hard. And then it's basically a non-porous material. So it's not gonna, you know, shrink and swell and absorb like a regular wooden handle, so it's much more durable, it's easier to polish, and it just comes out looking better.
So how do people find you guys, and where can they buy your knives?
So if you're local here to Portland, definitely recommend coming down to the factory, just because you can see the process, you can talk to us, and you'll have the largest selection to choose from. All our knives look differently, the grain flow is different, the heat treatment line is going to be slightly different, and the burl is definitely different, even though if it comes from the same exact batch and the same tree. So if you're local, definitely come see us. But we are in about 60 retailers around the country, specialty knife shops, and then we're also at Sur La Tables around the country.
Excellent.
And you can always just buy online too.
Sure. Absolutely. Well, thanks for having me down here, man. This is great, and what you guys are doing is just absolutely spectacular.
Absolutely, yeah. Thanks for coming down.
Who knew? This was right here in Portland in our backyard. Support our local people. You might need a knife. I know I sure do.